Okay, everybody, we're going to have the lecture number 3 is on the rise of the state and the age of commerce. We're going to talk about the condition, the people, that's kind of a situation, the historical past of the pre-colonial time of Indonesia, when the way people start living in this area and begin to develop their civilization. We might to try to dig what that shape that the values, people, tradition, and everything which is linked in the time. And in the syllabus, I sent you the share about I told you before about the documentary about Majapahit, one of the greatest empire that ever exists in the archipelago, in the Indonesian archipelago, which is on the first empire will start to think to try to unite all the island, all the people in the island across the archipelago, from Sumatra, Malay Peninsula, Borneo, of course, the Java, they were settled in the East Java, Bali, Sulawesi, Maluku, the Spice Island, and then other region in Indonesia Tenggara. That Majapahit was a very big thing. And how they start create, they start develop, build their own, their power, their strength, it's not less it's linked with the two things, trade, and one other is a religion that is push them to be more powerful and expand the region. Okay, that's going to start. That's I'm going to retain again the role of the international trade network. That's mostly linked to the India with the vast region of India in China. That's two civilization, great civilization and market, of course, that make the people in Southeast Asia for the ancient time got their own prosperity. So before so the region is always linked with the trade, even for today. So they got benefit from that, and they can never can live without it. So they never so isolated. They're always open for everything. Okay, and then the role of religion, and some say about some major state that exists in the pre-colonial time. Take a look in the photograph I sent you. Anybody can notice it? What's this one? What do you think about this? You know this?
Is it a mosque, son?
Yeah, what most? Can you tell me?
I think the
You
one in Kudus.
yeah. Yeah, it's the mosque, the Kudus minaret more precisely. So it's the very old mosque. There's a built about, I'm not sure, but it's but in 16th century, so it's very old. But take a look the shape, the design, which is quite literally it's quite like similar with the Hindu or Buddhist temple that already um, you can find it across the Southeast Asia or in Indonesia in general. So Kudus was the region in north and the coastal north of Java that begin to embrace Islam. So they convert from Hinduism and Buddhism to Islam, but they cannot abandon their own legacy as a Hindus and Buddhists. So when they start building mosques, they keep the design on the Hindu Buddhist temple there. And lucky for us that is still preserved, and even the mosque is very active up to today. Even Kudus in the past, I'm not sure for today, but in the past, they have a rule, within the Muslim community, they have a kind of a Idul Adha or the festival for the sacrifice when at the time where they slaughter a cow or sheep. But in Kudus, it's forbidden to slaughter a cow, to sacrifice a cow. Because a cow is a very holy animal in the Hinduism. So to respect that, they say, okay, in the region, we allow for the sacrificial time with the sheep or a buffalo, but not a cow, because this cow is a very, very holy for the Hinduism. And they keep respect that. But I don't know what's today. They still have that kind of rule of the region or they already changed. But we may check later on. Let's continue again. It's the international trade network that I mentioned you before in the first or the second lectures. This coming from the Janet Abulukat, the book before European hegemony, and it's talking about some kind of a centers or network, trade centers that cover region before the colonial time, the European colonial time. From one in the Mediterranean, number one in Italy and Greece in Mediterranean, and then that is include the number two is in the Mediterranean Sea too. Number three, the Silk Road, the very famous Silk Road that linked Peking in China to Europe, including today like in Afghanistan and other areas. But we concentrate on number 7 and number 8. That is very crucial. One links Southeast Asia with India. That includes all India and Southeast Asia via Bay of Bengal or Indian Ocean, which is very busy route. From the ancient time, it's very busy international trade route that link with the people in this region. And will bring a lot of influence from India, which is very old civilization, to Southeast Asia in general. When you may say that people in Southeast Asia at the time was mostly Indian, we can say that they are actually Indian or not. They're Indian. They have a similar languages, they similar values, tradition, even religion, even the staple. You know, like people in India, mostly in the south, the Kerala or Tamil Nadu, they're quite similar. So really similar with people in Southeast Asia. The staple they eat rice, compared with the people in the northern part of the India, which mostly with the wheat or something others. And the number 8, the centers link Asia, or mostly we might call it as a Far East. Yes, the East, but the 4 one. That's link Shanghai, Japan today, Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and others island in Southeast Asia. It means this Southeast Asia is the meeting of the 2 great civilizations, India and China, that I have to mention many times to you. So if we're going to understand Indonesian people, tradition, value, cultures, so don't get confused. Why that some influence from China? Why some influence from India? Yeah, they mix it together in Southeast Asia, and particularly in Indonesia with a certain degree. So look again, that I told you about before, that's the east and the south and the Maritime Siguro. We call it Maritime Siguro. So the sea from the Maritime Siguro is not a barrier. At the time, jungle, where the Southeast Asia is mostly rainforest with a big tree, and very thick forest is a barrier. But water, the low sea water of Southeast Asia is a land. It's something that is easy, that give them a way to travel by ship. That's why if you look again in the map, some of the ancient, the old town and cities or civilization centers in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, is mostly located very closely to the coast. Because at the time they settled there. Just only a few people living in the mainland, so in the hinterland. This is mostly not. Because at the time it was a rainforest, big jungle, very thick, not easy to travel, and very dangerous with the animal and everything else. So they're living in that. So we have to see that here at the time, the trade network is a very common, and is a via the waters, the low sea water that across Southeast Asia. That the 2 international trade network, one to India, the other one to China, which brought a lot of influence, that we have to say. So while people in Southeast Asia then have a trade their own commodities, mostly from the flora fauna in this area, and from the other thing, from the other great civilization. So you have seen like a culture, belief, religion, knowledge, technologies, and food. Even they have a link as a similarity they share. Even some actually, there's some people is coming from the region too. So they mix together this part. Again, is more closely. We might start with the Indian Ocean Trade Network. See, that's how the trade network is spanning from in the Africa, in the eastern region of Africa, including Madagascar today, and the Horn of the Africa continent, Somalia today, Yemen, the cross region, including the Hormuz state, the Bandar Abbas, Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, and some other, or maybe Dubai at the today time. Linked with the western coast of India, in Kalichut, Mumbai, and then the Bay of Bengal, of course, Myanmar, today Bangladesh, Kolkata of India, and then to Southeast Asia. This Phuket, if you like to Phuket, Malay Peninsula, Sumatra, Indonesia, and then go down first to the Spice Island in the Maluku, close to Papua, and other ways go to north to China, Japan, and Korea, or including Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand, and other regions, and including them to go to Pacific. Within Southeast Asia itself, the trade route was already established. You know, see how this region, we call it Spice Island. That is one that is very famous and very very valuable economically in the ancient time, because this spice, some of them is only grow up in this region, but not in other part of the globe. So that why it's very precious. And then brought in all influence and create many civilization people from here in Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malay Peninsula, that's in Borneo, in Sumatra, Java, in Sulawesi, and other regions. That's all together. That all link it from the past. And what they're looking for, it's more precious, I mentioned before, is the spice. Any of you familiar with, or in your daily life, you like to meet this kind of a spice today? Nutmeg, for example. I don't know if you like to cook or not. I like to cook, so I know mostly. Clove. In Indonesia, clove is very important for cigarette. You know, the Indonesian cigarette, they put not only tobacco but clove. Does it have a different flavor and taste. If you smokers, you may notice that. I'm a smoker before, so I know that. But clove is also used for food. And sandalwood. Sandalwood is some kind of a thing that used as Indonesia call it minyak angin. I don't know in English. It was this kind of a it's mostly if you feel not good enough in your body and you need to warm it up, you put that kind of oil that make it from the sandalwood. And barus is quite to make thing more longer. So it's like they absorb the water. Not maybe like a silica gel in today, but it's not like that. Mostly through to China, India, Middle East, and even to Rome during the Rome Empire. So all of them that is coming from mostly in Southeast Asia. And if we look again, it's only from this region, the Spice Island, in the eastern region of Indonesia. So while this, to be honest, this region is very not that easy to reach, and people is not easy to travel to. You know why? Mostly they take a ship, and ship is mostly powered by the wind. So it's not with the electricity or oil or with a steam engine is not invented yet. And the civilization exists, we might like hypothetically thinking, because of the international trade work and that time was not easy to be conducted. So they have to stop. because they're waiting for the wind. For example, it is in the equator region, and there is mostly two direction of the wind over years. The other one is we call it the, I'm not sure how to say that, but when the wind goes down from the north to the south. So people from the north, from the region of the north, will be go down here. They're not travel in this region because it's very dangerous. Look, in the map with the one of very wide was its main is a very deep water, while a bit gray here is a low sea water. And at the time, they only travel by ship on the low sea water rather than on the deep one, because the ship was very small. And they keep waiting. They have to waiting for the direction of the wind. So people here, when the wind direction to the south, they travel to here to Majapahit region and brought in their their spice, their commodity, and partner with the rice, with other that is they don't have it, because Java is the place which is the very fertile, and the paddy field was very good in this region, but not in Maluku or in Sulawesi or in Borneo. That is not that kind of stuff. So the partner was stopped in Majapahit, that make it very powerful. Then while people this region go back when the direction of the wind goes north, other people from the north, from the west, from Peninsula, Malay Peninsula, from China, from Sumatra, they're coming into Majapahit to get the spice. So they're kind of like a broker here. So they have somebody that's collected and they sell it again, the retailers. Because of this limit and then some capacity they cannot overcome in the traditional travel at the time, that set up the center, civilization central, the trade centers, and then becoming kingdom and empires, and brought the people together to develop their own community, ethnic group, and society in general. That's the way people in region start to flourish. Of course, it's taken centuries. It's not years, it's not days, and it's a very long time. And this can spice. While then the trade was a very important that create the centers, the kingdom, the empires, the cities, town across the Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and the archipelago in general, they brought something else. They need something else, or they brought it something else. Religions. So Southeast Asia is like the place when the Eastern world religion arrived in the antiquity. Start with Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and then later on Christianity. So what common in Indonesia, we have like Borobudur with a big Buddhist statue. Is in Balinese temple with its very strong legacy of Hinduism, and the Islamic mosque, the ancient Islamic mosque, which is in some degree quite similar with a Hindu architectural design. Okay, and we look here how the Buddhism arrived to Southeast Asia and Indonesia. Look again here. If you're not familiar with Buddhism, I tell you here, it started in the 200 BC in the northern part of India today, very close to Nepal, to Bhutan. When the Siddhartha tried, they create Buddhism, and its disciple starting to spread in over the region. They go to today Afghanistan. So to be honest, when the Taliban rise in power again after 20 years, for me personally, what I'm afraid is they're going to destroy again, because when they're in power what 25 years ago, they destroy all the Buddhist statues that exist in Afghanistan. Because in the past, Afghanistan is a very Buddhist country, other than today, like becoming more Islamic uh, country. They goes all to China, to Mongolia, some other part to Korea today, and Japan. When it's the legacy and the influence of Buddhism are still very, very prevalent. I mean, still very, very strong in today's society. But then in 5th and 13th century start to arrive in Southeast Asia. Starting firstly, start in Myanmar, Thailand, and then to Malay Peninsula, Cambodia, Vietnam today, and then go down to Sumatra in Indonesia today, and then finally Java, and have some influence in the coastal region of the east coastal region of Borneo, some of the up to Sulawesi. If you're asking me why they not goes through, yeah, the time was stopped, and I think in 5th to 13th century that some of the island in the archipelago of Indonesia is still empty. There's nobody there. So no trade centers, no town, no city. So mostly they just the people already there, and you know the population was very very small. I think it's not easy. So look, in the history, like Khmer in Cambodia was a very big Buddhist empire, and Sakhuthai in Thailand, including Bagan, I mentioned to you before in Myanmar. All of them have the influence, or they built their civilization, Khmer, Sukhothai, Bagan, and Myanmar with the Buddhism. But also in Indonesia, the earliest kingdom like Kalinga, Srivijaya, Medang, and including Majapahit, that I mentioned in the earlier of the lecture, was have also get the influence from Buddhism and to build their own society. Followed that by Hinduism. It's quite a bit debated which one first arrived in Indonesia between Buddhism and Hinduism. But you know, in the past, Buddhism and Hinduism is sometimes it's not easy to differentiate. Some people, both in India or in Southeast Asia, is mostly like they just move from Buddhism and Hinduism is like quite similar. You know, because in Hinduism, they're not one single belief or belief system. I mean, so they are actually divided into different belief systems in the past. So now in the current one, maybe kind of like consolidated into one religion, but in the past it's divided into many different sects or brands, with this in some aspect they overlap with others, including with Buddhism. So it's likely Buddhism is another version of Hinduism, but of course it's not another version, but in some aspect it there overlap of value and tradition in that two religions. Hinduism too, that's arriving in Southeast Asia in the same way of Buddhism arrived via international trade network, when the religious missionary began to take away in the national trade network and spread the religion in the region. Southeast Asia itself, or in general the island in Southeast Asia, that's mentioned in the one of the Indian holy epic of Ramayana as Dwipantara or Jawa Dwipa or Yawadipa, Sumatra in Java. So the Indian people in the antiquity, they already recognize there is people living on island in the eastern part of India after the Indian subcontinent. That is called it as Yawadwipa, which is actually today the archipelago of Indonesia, including the peninsula and the Malay Peninsula and Sumatra and Java. I mean, in circa 4 centuries, there already some kingdom that is established and have a strong influence of Hinduism. One is Kutai in East Kalimantan. Kutai region now soon maybe becoming the new capital of Indonesia. That's the recent government is trying to move, have a plan that's already decided, and they in process to build a new capital to move away from Jakarta, because Jakarta is very vulnerable for the disaster and the earthquake, and the the sea level was going up, and some believe Jakarta was vulnerable for get sink because of that, and they tried to move to Borneo and Kutai, which is some of the part of Kutai that's quite close to the center of the Kutai kingdom, will become the Indonesian capital in Penajam. And Tarumanegara in West Java is another kingdom that have a very early influence from the Hinduism. Of course, that is very small and they not last longer. And Kalinga in Central Java. The Kalinga is like the embryo, the very starting civilization in Central Java that later on responsible to build Borobudur, the very big one. So here's, any of you familiar with this? Ramayana and Mahabharata? Ramayana and Mahabharata within the Indian Hinduism is a very holy story. So it's holy. It's literally is very holy. They put the story of Ramayana and Mahabharata as part of the why of life, the values, the belief, the religious principle of Hinduism in India. So be careful if you. But in Indonesia, they have strong legacy in Ramayana and Mahabharata with limited influence of Hinduism. That's quite unique. It's mean the story is already spread to Southeast Asia. People already familiar and very popular in Indonesia since antiquity. Even when people already not part of the religion anymore. So, for example, in Ramayana and Mahabharata, there is one of the god, the figure of God, call it Vishnu or Vishnu. I think you're familiar with the name. But one time, I have a very unique experience. My friend was Vishnu. He's coming from Jakarta, and with him, I'm studying in Nottingham. And one time, we have met a friend from India that is Hindus, and we introduced other, and my friend, my name is Vishnu, and my new friend from India is quite astonished. Wow, Vishnu is a god. Yes, but Vishnu, my friend, is a Muslim. So how come a Muslim coming from India have a name that originally a name of a god in the Hindu tradition, but in Indonesian style or in an Indonesian tradition, that's quite common to have that kind of stuff. So the idea of Vishnu is already in their mind, part of their thinking, way of life, but without belief again, with the religion is linked with it. So it's mean how strong the legacy of Ramayana and Mahabharata within the Indonesian people. So people are not adhere the religion anymore, but the value, the story, the legend will still exist and very influential. And in Mahabharata, for example, that is still, because it's a political topic, it's talk about the family political dispute of Bharata. While Ramayana is mostly like the old Romeo and Juliet version of India Java epic love story. We're actually talking about, of course, the fight between good and evil, but it's most likely about the loyalty of a wife and husband. So when the wife and husband they married and they stay to living together, to loyal each other, to love each other, it's not to abandon. That will be test from over all the experience through all life, that to spread that to test their marriage contract. When they agree to love each other. So Ramayana is talking about the loyalty of a wife and husband to build the family. It's a very foundation of the society. It is believed at the time. While Mahabharata is mostly a family political epic of Bharata dynasty. And in Indonesia was still used as usually for the metaphor when we have some kind of a political thing or and anything linked with the Mahabharata story. Even in the family, it's actually my personal experience, and my father's was a very traditional Japanese. It's very strong legacy with the Japanese value and tradition, and keep it together. So, for example, in Mahabharata, they have a 5 warrior, righteous warrior, with a different personality. So the first son, the oldest one, the Yudhishthira, or in Java I call it Puntadewa, if you're familiar with, it should be represent a calmness, always in mind, consider everything carefully, both in speaking or acting, and doing anything very well mannered. But the second son, Bhima, or in Java I call it Werkudara, was quite different. His personality was a very rude, but very honest, always speaking loudly and directly, even something with sarcasm and vulgarism. Of course, they still have a very good will, but with a very not good attitude, very rush. Or in number 3, in the middle was Arjuna, which represent not calmness but flamboyant, because Arjuna is the most handsome one. While that one in Indonesia is called it like Arjuna, is mean we want to be like Arjuna is meant to be flamboyant, handsome, and very skillful in some ways. And the other one was the youngest one. The another 2 is a twin, Nakula and Sadewa, was mostly like a bit childish, a bit dependent for the oldest one. So in Indonesian family, in my experience, lucky for me, I'm not the oldest one in my family. So I have a brother, big brother and big sister. My big brother for years, when he grew up, is always under pressure because my father want him to be calm, good manners, very careful in everything, even in speaking and acting, and have to responsible to lead, to be the good example for his brother and sister. This is a bit younger. But for me, because I'm not the, I'm mostly like a Bhima. My father told me you like a Bhima, so it's mean I get free. I don't need to learn some kind of a very complicated manner in the Javanese tradition, and you don't need to speak very calmly. You have to say directly, and if you angry, you don't like it, just show it like that. So I don't know if you some of you coming from the Javanese family, and then some Indonesian like oh it's coming from the oldest one because it's very calm or very good manner, very careful and everything. And that's Bhima, which is a very rude. Have a good heart, but very vulgar and limited manners. Okay. And later on, the influence of religion is coming up with Islam. You know, Southeast Asia is the last region becoming Islamic region. Even after the Spain, the Andalusia. So while all the region in Saudi Arabia, of course, it's like the first century of Islamic calendars, and then Egypt or northern part of Africa, and then to to Iran, Afghanistan today, and up to India with the creation of Sultanate of Delhi, and in the eastern coast of Africa, that's mostly earlier. But Islam just arrived in Southeast Asia and mostly quite limited only to Malay Peninsula and Sumatra and Java, beginning in 15th century. So it's 1500. It's with the 16th century, I think. I mean, though of course some people start convert to Islam centuries earlier in 13 or 14, but the first Islamic kingdom, so that means politically established just in the 16th century. That's quite unique one. Southeast Asia was in gradually at the time in 1500 to 1600 becoming Islam, but mostly limited in the archipelago, but not the mainland. Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia was mostly free from the influence of Islam. That's quite some that they have to notice. Then gradually Islam arrived in Southeast Asia from Java, and then mixed. That's quite unique. Islamic tradition was mixed with the all Hindu and Buddhist tradition. So it's likely because mostly Hindu and Buddhist tradition is coming from India, while Islam arrived in Indonesia via India too, so through the Indian. So people who the first, there's a theory that is the first religious missionaries, Muslim religious missionaries arrived in Southeast Asia, mostly not coming from the Middle East, but it's coming from India. So it means they're from the same people who brought in Hinduism and Buddhism, and in the later period, they brought in Islam. Some also say about the Sufi Islamic scholarship. I mean, I don't know, it's like a Sufi. It's like a mysticism. It's like a bit linked with the sorcerers and sorcery and something like that. In a bit, not all, but some. And in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, the tradition is quite strong up to today. So how the Islam is quite late, so to say. And then brought in a lot of things, changed the politics, changed the direction of the civilization, convert from the one kingdom to another kingdom, that's mostly Hindu and Buddhism, and becoming Islam. That is quite a unique one. Okay, let me continue to some major state. And then we can look how this change happened in terms of the conversion to religion. One like at Tarumanagara in West Java, in today Banten in Jakarta. Banten is one of vast region close to Jakarta. It's a Hindu kingdom in the 5th century. Kalinga in Sailendra was a Buddhist kingdom in 7th or 8th century, middle north of Java, the northern part of Java that today. And then Srivijaya is actually built by the descendant of Sailendra of Java, that is start to build that power in 8th century in Palembang, Sumatra. Palembang is a region quite close to Singapore today. So it means they cover Singapore and Malay Peninsula in their heights. And then Maidang and Mataram is a Hindu 7th, 8th century in the same years of Shailendra, and they mixed too. They're becoming one kingdom, and who then built the Borobudur. They moved, the Maidang Mataram is Hindu moved to east, because I'll tell you later about the Pralaya, the volcano eruption, the Merapi eruption. That's a very big one, and then they forced them to abandon the land in central Java, move to the east one, and brought in their Hindu civilization from the region to East Java. And then Majapahit was still Hindu Buddhist kingdom. But then again, in 1500, in North Central Java, they start becoming the first Islamic kingdom with Dharma. The location is about 100, 500, 15, I think that's 150 kilometers from Semarang in Dharma, including Aceh, Malacca, Malay Peninsula, and then Mataram Islam later on, a century later in South Central Java. That is, so it's look like before the 1500, Southeast Asia, including Indonesia, was mostly Hindu and Buddhist kingdom. The influence of Hindu Buddhist civilization was very strong. Just after 1500, they're becoming Islam, and then soon they trapped to the colonization. That is the like interrupt the evolution of the Hindu, Buddhist, Islamic civilization in Southeast Asia. And here is the statue. It's like the gate, actually. It's the gate of the Majapahit era. It's very tall, very tall. You know, it's like almost the same height as a tree. So it's like a 15 meters, I think. And it's very grandiose. So it's like represent how they become like. And it's made from the brick. You know, it's quite unique. You know, in the time with the Hindu Medang Mataram in 7th centuries, when we have its legacy with Borobudur from Banan, the civilization is mostly made from the stone. But after the volcano eruption and I believe that also a lot of earthquake, they change not from the stone civilization and they move to brick, the brickyard. So mostly in the East Java, the old legacy heritage of Hindu Buddhist kingdom in East Java, they made from the brick rather than from the stone. Yes, of course. Then it's when it tests by the time, it's mostly destroyed now, rather than from stone. That is most lasting. Take a look again. It's the kingdom that exists there. It's Kalinga in the northern region of the central Java. You might notice the Muria. The Muria is a volcano. In the past, it's separated from the island, but now there is no separation anymore. It's just part of the of the central Java in Kudus. And Kalinga is here. It's today's Mara. You might, if you like to try to get how the influence of Hinduism in the very early time of Indonesia, you might visit Dieng. Yes, I wish to visit Dieng, but I don't know why for years I always not going there. I think this because it's my former girlfriend is coming from there and we break up and I feel very pity if we go there. So don't know that. But Gedong Songo was very good one. It's located in the mountain. I was remember 3 years ago I visited that region and they offered me a horse to ride and then I took the horse and then wow, it's without a horse I will be not able to reach the top because it's very the terrain is very quite bit dangerous and quite high and they built the temple in the region. You might imagine how people build a temple. It's very high of the mountain. How they got a stone, how they lift the stone and then make it. How many years they create that? So it's mean if we're thinking about that, the civilization is it's quite high at the time in Kalinga. And very good thing here, it's led by the queen, not the king. So it's a female queen. Some historian try to interpret this. In Southeast Asia, mostly the gender differences between male and female is quite blurred. So while in India today or in Middle East, some like we saw in Afghanistan when the female is mostly have to live in house and have no public role. But in Southeast Asia, it's not like that. Since antiquity, male and female mostly have the same position. They can be anything and they can be very active in the public role. And including one in 7th century, the queen, they lead by the queen. This the Medang and Matara is I told you before that is merged by Shailandra, but actually it's not merged. It's actually like occupation. It's like domination of the Medang of Mataram to the Shailandra. Though of course it's happening not by war, by the marriage. When the Medang Mataram king Srivijaya married the princess of the Shailandra. And for that purpose, they built Borobudur. And they have influence from Hindu Buddhist together. So this This region first, you might see here, they're located in central Java, in today, very close to Yogyakarta, Matara here, and around the mountain, the volcano, the Merapi volcano, and Merbabu. There's something very active. Then happened something very bad happened. It's like a Pompeii, in European Pompeii, when the volcano erupt and then change the course of civilization. The eruption is believed to be very, very big. Is then the ash, the dirt that's cover all the region, all the kingdom, including the buried Borobudur. Can you imagine? They buried Borobudur. So Borobudur is actually a loss for centuries before then fought again in the early 20th century as something that is less abundant because it's mostly under the ash. At the time it's already the land, the dirt that's everywhere. So the Mataram is moved to the east. So we might say people of today in Yogyakarta and other regions actually have no continuity. The people in the antiquity of Matara, because mostly people is already moved to the east. They abandoned the region and then becoming Majapahit and other kingdom. We still brought in the Hindu and Buddhist tradition with them. Take a look here. There is two great temples in Yogyakarta region and Central Java, in the center and in the south. One you might familiar in Borobudur, another one is Prambanan. These two maybe some similarity because they built in the same time. But Borobudur is a Buddhist, while Prambanan is Hindus. Borobudur is bigger, the grandest, but Prambanan is tall. It's taller than Borobudur. And you look, I just my calculation through the Google map. It's only about 50 kilometers. It's quite close. Because in the past, was the same civilization, is one kingdom. They have a Buddhist temple, big Buddhist temple in the north, in the central Java, very close to Merapi, of course. And in the south, they have a Prambanan. That's to respect the Hindu god. And in the region, if you're familiar with today recent news, the government is trying to make a toll route connected to Jakarta, to Solo, and to Semarang. Semarang was here in the north, Solo was in the east. And they have a big problem. Do you know what problem? They don't want to, then when they dig thing for the toll road, and then they discover the ruin of the old temple or anything, because during the 7th and 8th century was a center of the Hindu Buddhist Medang Mataram civilization, which is suddenly, because of the volcanic eruption, was covered by the ash and then abandoned. So it's mean in this region was a very fast of the ruin that is still uncovered, uncanny up to today. And they don't want to, when they already bought the land, they already set up the design, the layout of the street, the toll road, and then they have to stop. We have an archaeology site here. Yeah, we cannot move. That is still debated. Why? And one couple of years ago, when one of the Islamic universities, Indonesian Islamic University in Yogyakarta, one of the oldest university in Indonesia, where they start their campus complex in northern region. When they dig up for the foundation, they have to stop because they found the ruin. And then I don't know, it's identified or not yet. But that's now, as I know, in the library, there will be site, the archaeological site that is kept preserved in the building. You might visit the campus if you here and look the ruin. And here we move out from Java into Srivijaya. That is when then Shailendra merged to Medang, and mostly Medang is Hindu. Yes, Buddhism is preserved and respected, but still Hindu is becoming more dominant in politics and in society. And the descendant of Sailendra, they moved out from Java and then settled up in Srivijaya. Srivijaya was here in the center, in the South Sumatra today, very close to Singapore here. Now, why Srivijaya was a very good point for the international trade road. Take again, it's a very international trade road. Even in modern time, Singapore is a small city state that has got a lot of things. They got prosperity from the international trade road that in the past was started and developed by the Srivijaya Empire. It's an 8th to 12th century, look at Sumatra, and dominated all the trade in Southeast Asia. They link with Champa in Vietnam, Hammer in Indrapura of Cambodia, went to Laos, and to South China Sea, mostly to China, and then even in Kedah is in northern region of Malay Peninsula. It's close to Patani in Thailand, and also of a link with the other region because it's actually close. They are like family, royal family. Some of the north, they're becoming the center of the Buddhist educational center in Southeast Asia. So while all the Buddhist students from Asia, they're going to India, they have to stop in Srivijaya. One, of course, is because it's the trade road. They make them have to stop. But also in the Srivijaya, they offer kind of the pre-course before they take the very, very good course in India. So they stopped there. That's why Srivijaya is becoming more important. And later on, Majapahit is very envious in that part and try to attack the region in the later period. I told you before, then the descendant of Medang Mataram, they moved to the east and they set up, start with Singasari and then Majapahit, and the Majapahit was important because they start to unite. They have the effort to unite all the region of Indonesia. And if we might like to dig more, all of the setup of the early foundation of the Indonesian state and nation in terms of even the national flag, the red and white, the national motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity in diversity, and other name. I don't if you coming up, you already visit the university in Gadjah Mada. There's a big hall, they call it Graha Sabha Pramana. The term Graha Sabha Pramana is taken from the old Javanese word that's used during the Majapahit time. So it's just like a Majapahit is the idol that then generated and used to develop the Indonesian nation and nationality. The Dui Warna, the two colors, red and white, that is used in Majapahit as their banners for wars and everything else. And Bhinneka Tunggal Ika is found as the principle, the way they govern the diversity in terms of religion and cultures. That at that time the Majapahit tried to unite, center in East Java, in very close to Surabaya today. So we may say like the proto-nationalist project to unite all the Nusantara of the archipelage once started with Majapahit. While before that, Srivijaya is already try unite, though of course very limited in Malay Peninsula to Sumatra in other region in Southeast Asia. And then in 15th century, 15th, 16th century, they're becoming Islam. Of course, it takes time, 2-3 centuries, the confederation began, but when Majapahit start to decline, and then some state, some kingdom, some region try to get independent and from the Majapahit, and they fight for that. The first one is what's successful is Demak. the first Islamic kingdom in Java that is located in the north coastal region of central Java, quite close with the Kalinga and the old. So actually, it's like the center of civilization in the past, and then for centuries later, it's becoming a center again. Then it's quite close. This Islamic kingdom is very important in terms for the modern day of Indonesia. For example, this kingdom, they start facing the arrival of the Portuguese and have a concession, have a set up is a fortress in Malacca, in Malaysia today. One, they try to conquer them. So they still have idea that they control all the archipelagos, including Malay Peninsula. When the Portuguese start to dominate the region in trade with a mighty military naval unit, with the galleon and everything else, they try to fight it. So one of the prince, Pati Unus, it's actually in term is Adipati Yunus, but in Java sometimes it's difficult to say that with the long one. Yunus is mostly the Arabic name. Then just simple in Java, I call it Pati Yunus. And it's have a title as the Pangeran Sabrang Lord. It means Pangeran is a prince, Sabrang is cross, Lord is the north. It means the prince who crossed the north, the Malay, tried to attack the Portuguese. But the pity, the attack with its mount end his life too. So after the attack, his ship was break up and he badly injured. And when he sent home, we brought home, he's passed away later on. And they actually expecting the descendant to be a king. But then Mataram after this declined. Throughout the time, centuries later, the descendant of Dharma, they set up northern Matara. So don't be confused with the two Matara. So the term Mataram too is a very Indian, to be honest. The Indian national anthem today, modern time, is a Bende Matara. So Mataram is meant the land of the prosperity. And you already used in Indonesia, in Java, since the antiquity, since the 7th and 10th centuries. And reiterate again with during the Islamic time in 16th century to set up the region in today, Yogyakarta and Solo. It's called the Mataram land. And so because the name is a very important. So I mean, I think that they already in their mind for collective, the collective mind about the thing is Mataram is a good word to represent prosperity. When we have something to big thing, they good to put name Mataram rather than others. The other one is Mataram. There's this very big one. They try to control all Java, and they have a history when led by Sultan Agong attacked the position of the Dutch, the VOC. In Batavia, in Jakarta today. It's not only one, twice. But similar what happened to Pati Unus, Sultan Agong, when they tried to attack the position of the one of Portuguese and then the Dutch in Malacca and in Batavia, the result was not good. After the attack, it's a fail, they mostly defeated. And the mark was declined, and Sultan Agong Mataram is always declined too. It's like the last final battle. So after that, they have nothing. So they know that, but they have to do that. Later on in 15, no, it's quite earlier in 15th centuries, they are also Kingdom of Aceh. If you're familiar with, it's in Arabic, but it have to pronounce in Malay. So it's the script here is in Arabic, but we have to read that in Malay language. So it's called Kerajaan Aceh Darussalam. So I'll tell you later about this. They have a rival on Malay Peninsula that is very strong. Have a link with the Ottoman Empire. They have a lot of assistance with the ship, with the galleon from the Turkish Ottoman Empire, which is very big at the time. It's like a control Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and including in Syria and Palestine today. The time they enjoy mostly very long, lasting power up, the last kingdom conquered by the Dutch. They just broken up after a highly and long-term war that is erected by the Dutch and the early 20th century. So it's the last kingdom stand alone in Southeast Asia, but not only Indonesia but Southeast Asia. Is Aceh. So they have the very proud one and very strong Islamic tradition. So even today, that's why when they have very proudness to be the last kingdom conquered by Dutch, and then when they got discriminated for economic reason by the central government of Indonesia during the Suharto presidential term, they're very angry with that. They're asking independence. And for the compromise, then Aceh not got independent, but they becoming the very special kingdom, very special province of Indonesia. What is special is they have their own rule, the Islamic Sharia, which of course it's not quite like a Taliban Islamic Sharia or Islamic State Sharia, but the Sharia is a bit yes, I don't like to say that, but they try to make it work, and some, but not very ruthless. But still, you in Aceh, if you drink alcohol in public, you might got the hit or 100 or something else in public. So of course, it's different, but you can't care that one. Some they have some sultana. That is very important. In Southeast Asia, male and female again is quite equal. Even within the Islamic Sultanate of Aceh, they have experience to have the female sultan. That is not our other Islamic kingdom in around the world. The Islamic sultan, the female sultan. Yes, it's just a couple of years because then there's a dispute and they have to be changed to the male sultan. The other one is in the eastern region of Maluku, the Spice Island, the Sultanate of Ternate and Sultanate of Tidore. So actually, I'm going to say here is to make sure you have to understood the difference between. I mean, first, the influence of Islam is very strong, even up to the eastern region. The Maluku was a sultanate, but Papua, and we might take here the bird head of Papua, the bird head of the Papua Peninsula, was part of the Sultanate Ternate and Tidore. So it's part of the Indonesia, while the islander, the mountaineers of Papua is mostly linked to the Pacific tradition, Pacific people, the Tobrian Island and Aboriginal of Australia. They fight a lot because the Spice Island, where the spies are coming up. Again, the Spanish, Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British. And they have a long war. Some they allied with the Spanish, sometimes they have allied with the Portuguese, some other time with the British, and they fight the Dutch and other things. So it's a very political and very long term. But what I'm going to say here is that one, the traditional Indonesian people from the antiquity is actually up to the bird head of Papua, but not the whole island of Papua. Okay, so how the influence is strong? I always mention how the Indian civilization and the Chinese civilization have a very strong influence in the today Indonesian cultures and values, for example. One, we have to note about the script, the way the people write down their own civilization, the Javanese script. Actually, there's a lot of script in Indonesia before the colonial time, but I just single out the Javanese script. And it's called Aksara Jawa or Hane Caraka, Carakan or Denta Wanjana. They were originally from Indian Brahmi script that spread out in Southeast Asia in 6th and 7th centuries. It's mostly the script, if you compare like with the Thai script, it's quite similar. Yes, it's then declined. So you can find it's still here used in Jakarta, mostly in the name of the street, like Jalan Malioboro. Don't ask me how to write and how to read that. I'm sorry, I'm not capable of that. Some of you may be coming from Java, still have familiar with. But when I was kid at school, I learned that too when I was in elementary and the primary school. But it's not lasting. It just use. I'm sorry, my kid. Yeah, bentar. Bentar, sama mana? Yeah, yes. But again, I mentioned before about the Arab Jawi. You know, when I saw you the Aceh. Okay, just sit here. Yeah. Sorry, my kid interrupt. He's just coming home from playing. The Arab Jawi is one of the history. The kingdom in Indonesia, they adopt the Arab script to write down all the tradition. So they call it Arab Jawi. So it's written in Arabic, but have to read and pronounce in Malay or in Bahasa Jawa, in Javanese, or in other language, vernacular languages across the ethnic of Indonesia. Some like in Madura or in Sunda, they use this script too. Sorry, my AirPod is dropped. Some still use yours, like anybody can read that. It's Jalan Ade Irma Suryani, but it's written in Arabic. Jalan Adi Irma Suryani. So that's all the language. But have a note here. While Indonesian or the culture tradition of the pre-colonial time in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, they adopt Indian, even Arabic script for their language. They don't adopt Chinese. That's still a mystery. They don't adopt Chinese. The kanji. I think the relation with China was always a bit unique. I mean, that's yes, they have a economic relationship. They build the political relationship, but always with careful. I don't put here. But you know, the Majapahit kingdom was set up in 13th century, was actually started with the conquer, you know, in the documentary, the movie documentary I saw you might watch, you're interested. One of the Kublai Khan army. Kublai Khan is the king, the Mongol king of China in 11th to 14th century at that time, about that time, that sent 1,000 to 20,000 army to attack the one of the Japanese king of the Singasari. Because before, the Chinese king, the asking the Javanese king as a vassal, and the Java people, Java king, I think, they refused that. They don't want it. Now we are independent. We don't want to bow to you. Yes, we have an economic relation with you. Yes, we adopt your technology. We want all your technology and your civilization, but not your powers. So the relationship with China is quite similar up to today. You know, is when the China becoming very stronger politically, militarily, and economically, and now start to build the influence in Southeast Asia. The feeling of respect, the feeling of worry, of fear, is actually similar. That's why in the past they don't adopt the language or even the script, and they prefer the Indian, even the Arab one. Even today, you know, the Southeast China Sea was but the very some predict will be Europe as the center of conflict in the future for the battle to get the mineral and other things. Okay, I think that's all for this meeting. If you have any question and query, I will stop the record first. Sorry.